The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 annual meeting of the shareholders of Chino Commercial Bancorp. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's meeting. You have joined the annual meeting using your computer speaker system by default. If you prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. At the end of the meeting, you will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions chat pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the meeting. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's shareholders meeting. Today's meeting is being recorded, and if you have not voted and you wish to do so during the meeting, please click on the link in the question chat box that will link to the vote. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Bowman, President and CEO of Chino Commercial Bancorp.
Well, good evening and welcome to the annual shareholders meeting at Chino Commercial Bank. My name is Dan Bowman. I'm the President and CEO of the company. During this meeting, first we'll conduct the formal portion of the business, the election of the directors, and then the ratification appointment of our auditors. Afterward, we'll show a video which summarizes the bank performance in 2019, and then a brief summary on current events because things have changed so much since year end. Following the video, we'll have a time for questions and answers, and as Tracy had pointed out, if you have any questions that come up, you can type those into the chat box, and Carol Murdahl will be collecting those questions. In accordance with the bylaws of the company, I will serve as the chairman of this meeting, and Jeanette Young will serve as the secretary. The 2020 annual meeting of the shareholders of Chino Commercial Bank is now convened. At this time, I'd like to ask Julio Cardenas to open this meeting with prayer. Julio?
Thank you, Dan. Heavenly Father, we come before you, first of all, to just thank you for your goodness and your kindness. We lift up this meeting to you and ask for your wisdom. We ask that you continue to bless the decisions that are made by the board of directors and by the CEO of Chino Commercial Bank. And we just ask your continued guidance as we go through this meeting. And once again, we are grateful for all you have done for us individually. And we ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Julio.
You're welcome.
Julio will also be serving in the capacity of conducting the legal portion of the meeting. Carol Murdahl, as I mentioned, will serve as the inspector of elections, meaning she will collect and tabulate the votes and then enter those into the minutes of the meeting. With that, I'd like to turn over the mic to Julio for the business portion of the meeting. Julio?
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. This meeting is being held pursuant to the call of the Board of Directors and the legal notice of the annual meeting dated April 8th of 2020. May I hear a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice and to attach the secretary's certificate to the minutes of this meeting?
I am Roger Caberto, a shareholder of the company, and I move that the reading of the legal notice be waived and that the secretary's certificate be annexed to the minutes of this meeting.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I am Kevin Baker, a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded that the reading of the legal notice be waived and that the secretary's certificate be annexed to the minutes of this meeting. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. May I hear a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of the last annual shareholders meeting?
I'm Richard Malooly, a shareholder of the company, and I move that the reading of the minutes be waived.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I am Kevin Baker, a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded that the reading of the minutes of the last shareholders meeting be waived. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. A certificate of mailing showing that the notice of the annual meeting and proxy statement was properly mailed has been filed and will be annexed to the minutes of this meeting. The board has appointed Carol Murdahl to serve as the inspector of election to count the votes, determine the validity of the proxies, and decide on all questions and challenges arising in connection with the election. Will the inspector of election now give the quorum report?
Of the 2,230,808 shares of the company's company stock outstanding as of March 9th, 2020, the record date for this meeting, 1,664,446 shares, or 74.61%, are represented either in person or by proxy.
Thank you, Ms. Murdahl. Since 1,115,405 shares are necessary for a quorum and 1,664,446 are represented, a quorum is present. Therefore, this meeting is duly organized and can proceed with conducting business. As you know, there are two legal actions to be taken at this evening's annual meeting of shareholders. Number one, the election of the company's board of directors, and two, the ratification of appointment of independent auditors. Since the company has not received any notices of intention to nominate directors pursuant to the company's bylaws, cumulative voting will not be necessary. Therefore, we will dispense with any explanation of cumulative. I would like to announce that the following 8 candidates have been nominated for election to the board of directors to serve until the next annual meeting of shareholders and until their successors are elected and have qualified. Dan H. Bowman, Julio Cardenas, Linda M. Cooper, Richard G. Malooly, Kenneth McIlvaney, Bernard J. Wolfswinkel, Thomas A. Woodbury, D.O., Jeanette L. Young. I would like to entertain a motion to elect management's slate of directors nominees. Do I have such a motion?
I am Roger Caberto, a shareholder of the company, and I hereby make a motion to elect management slate of directors nominees.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I am Kevin Baker, a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The motion has been carried. As you probably know, your proxy card gives you the ability to vote against individual candidates in addition to being able to vote in favor of or against the whole slate of nominees. As a result, different nominees may have different numbers of votes. Now I would like to call on the inspector again for the official results of the voting. Ms. Murdahl, could you please tell me the least number of shares voted, authority given with respect to any of the nominees for director?
1,488,948.
And the total number voted, authority withheld?
2,225.
Thank you. Management's 8 candidates have officially been re-elected to serve as directors for another year. The second item of business is the ratification of appointment of independent auditors. As indicated in the proxy statement, this proposal is not legally required, but the board has chosen to voluntarily give the shareholders the opportunity to ratify or not ratify the auditor committee's appointment of the independent auditors for the upcoming year. The audit committee still has to be the body that makes the ultimate decision about the selection of the company's independent auditors, but is interested in the opinion of the shareholders concerning its decision. May I have a motion to ratify the appointment of Adie Bailey LLP as the company's independent auditors for 2020?
I'm Richard Malooly, a shareholder of the company, and I hereby make a motion to ratify the appointment of Adie Bailey LLP as the company's independent auditors for 2020.
May I please have a second to that motion?
I am Kevin Baker, a shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. The motion has been carried by voice vote. Now I would like to call on the inspector again for the official results of the voting. Ms. Murdoch, can you tell me the number of shares voted for and against this proposal?
There were 1,663,742 for the proposal and 704 against.
Very good. And can you also tell me the percentage of the shares represented and voting that were voted in favor of this proposal?
The percentage of shares voting in favor of the proposal was 99.96%.
Thank you. This proposal has been approved. Will the Inspector of Election please file your certificate of voting results when completed with the Secretary?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes the formal business portion of the meeting. I would now like to call on Dan Bowman for his report of the performance of the bank. Dan?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Julio. Great job, both you and Carol, on that portion. As I mentioned, we prepared a brief video regarding the performance of the bank in 2019. I think what we'll see is that it was really a very good year. Tracy, if we could start the video.
All right, looking at the agenda, we've completed the legal portion of the meeting. We've completed the voting, both for the directors as well as ratification of the bank's financial auditors. And now we're to the portion where we look at the performance of the company over the past year or the most recent history. And we will touch on current conditions, first quarter, and then at the end we'll go into a question and answer session. Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to get your annual report, and as it shows, this is the 20th anniversary of the bank. If you look at both covers together, we can see that these blue bars are actually the earnings of the bank over the past 20 years. We can see down here at the bottom the years that relate to the earnings. Looking on the back cover, we can see the ribbon cutting 20 years ago and the Chino branch, our initial staff. Moving along, then we get into online banking and some of the automated products we have now. The new Chino branch, of course, that started in 2011. This is meant to represent a new program we're putting together now in which we are going to be offering credit cards this year. This year also we installed solar panels in both the Chino and the Ontario branch, and late 2018 we opened the new Upland branch on Mountain Avenue. And then this last slide here represents mobile banking. And mobile banking, of course, is the ability to access your account, to make deposits, to do transfers using a mobile device such as a phone or a pad. So 20 years ago, a group of 11 people in the community got together and decided that it would be a good idea to start a new community bank. The value proposition for the new community bank was that we would focus our services on small business. That was different from what was happening at the time. There was a lot of consolidation going on then. The bigger banks were getting much bigger, and the focus was on consumers. They did a pretty good job on consumers, and they did a pretty good job on very large businesses, but it was the small business in between where we felt we could hopefully give a higher level of service and be able to contribute to the local community. Today, many of those same board members are still on the board, beginning with myself, Dan Bowman. Bernie Wolfswinkel, our chairman, has been the chairman of the board since the organizing of the bank. Richard Mullooly is the vice chair of the board, and Richard is also a founding board member. Linda Cooper of Inland Empire Escrow. Linda is a founding board member going all the way back, as well as Jeanette Young. Jeanette is a realtor here in Chino with Windermere Real Estate. One of our newer members, Julio Cardenas, is the president of Century 21 King in Rancho Cucamonga. Julio serves as our chairman of the audit committee, and he's a great contributor. Dr. Tom Woodbury is a founding director of the bank. Tom is a physician here in Rancho Cucamonga, great contributor, great board member. And our newest member, Ken McElvaney. Ken is a retired insurance executive, and his contribution to the board has been tremendous, especially in the area of insurance and evaluation of insurance-related issues. I'd like to take the time to introduce every one of our staff members to you. However, with almost 50 employees, that would take most of our time together tonight. Suffice it to say, this is the finest group I've had the pleasure of working with in my career. Everyone is focused, talented, smart, hardworking, and especially during this time of the corona outbreak, they have really stepped up to the plate and done what needed to be done. Long hours, weekends, extra work. This is a tremendous crew, the best I've worked in my life. Okay, for anyone who may not be familiar with the bank, we have 4 branch locations. The first is in Chino, the Chino headquarters. We purchased this building in 2010. And it is our largest. In 2006, we built our Ontario branch on Grove Avenue. It's a great little branch. It's got a good team doing a great job there. In 2010, we purchased and built out the Rancho Cucamonga branch on Rochester Avenue, across the street from Quake Stadium. It's a good location. It's well located, good exposure, and we've got a great team in there executing very well. And our most recent branch is on Mountain Avenue in Upland. We opened that in October of 2018, and terrific team in there doing good work, becoming an important part of the community very quickly. All 4 branch locations are operating well, profitable, contributing to the overall franchise very well. Looking at the bank performance in 2019, I think we can see that 2019 was an excellent year for the bank. We had good growth in the fundamentals, we had good credit quality, the economy was very strong, things were progressing very nicely. Right now, with everything going on, it is sometimes difficult to remember what a good year it was. Looking first at the increase in total assets, the bank's assets rose to $229 million, or 14% for the year. Excellent rate of growth, and as we can see, it continues to move along in a steady pace. Similarly, deposits increased up to $182 million. That's a 6% increase. And equally importantly, over half of the deposit growth was in non-interest-bearing checking accounts. Total loans increased nicely in 2019, rising from $132 million to $144 million, or about $12 million, or a 9% increase. A 9% increase year over year in loans is a healthy rate of increase, and as we can see, it is moving along steadily over the past 6 years in a sustainable growth pattern. Equally importantly to the growth in total loans is the quality of the loans. During 2019, we had a minus $83,000 in credit losses. What that means is that it was a net recovery. Not only did we not charge off loans, but then we collected $83,000 in previously charged off balances. So minus credit losses in the year. We finished the year, fortunately, with 0 loan delinquency. That means there were no loans at the bank that were more than 30 days delinquent. We had one loan which was a non-accrual at year-end, one loan at $120,000. That is a commercial building in Los Angeles. We estimate the value on that building at around $300,000, so we don't believe there's any risk of principal loss, and this borrower continues to make payments as agreed. At year-end, the bank had no OREO, or other real estate owned, which is a reference to foreclosed properties. The bank had no foreclosed properties on its books and no loans in process of foreclosure. The ALLL stands for Allocation to Loan and Lease Loss Reserve, or Loan Loss Reserve, as we like to phrase it. $2.4 million, about a $100,000 increase since the previous year. And equally importantly, that equates to about 1.66% of total loans. The value of this number is to show that we have adequate reserves built up in relation to potential credit losses. If we look at 1.66%, the bank has not had a year where it experienced losses of 1.6% on its total loans. So we feel this is an adequate and an appropriate reserve, and more than enough to cover anything that we can anticipate. Total revenue during 2019 increased by $1.7 million, or 18%, to $11.4 million. This is an all-time record for the bank in terms of revenue, and it was driven largely by increases in total loans and the yield on those loans. Not only did we increase our earnings on loans, but then, as we pointed out earlier, credit quality still remains very strong. So we didn't have to sacrifice credit quality in order to achieve yield. So an excellent year for revenue, and we believe it is sustainable. Interest expense on the other side of the coin also increased substantially. The nominal increase was $539,000, but because it was starting on a low base, as a percent, it rose 71%. However, it's important to keep in mind that the bank's overall cost of funds has not increased that much. We went from 38 basis points at the end of 2018 to 57 basis points at the end of 2019. So average cost of funds is just slightly over 1/2%. Looking at non-interest expenses, and of course that is rent and lighting and payroll, etc. That also rose by 17%, or $936,000. The reason for this increase was primarily the introduction of the Upland office. We opened in October of 18, but we had the full year in 19, so the comparison of those 2 years was off. So turning our attention to net earnings for 2019, the bank had an excellent year. We can see that consolidated earnings for the bank and the holding company for 2019 were at $2.5 million. That is an increase of 14% over the previous year. Excellent number. We're very pleased with that. Also, if we look at the earnings per share, it was $1.14 in 2019 as compared with $1 in 2018. Now, somebody may remember last year our earnings per share were higher than $1 per share, and the reason is those numbers are diluted by the additional shares that were issued with the stock dividend. This calculation assumes that a shareholder has 20% more shares from the issuance last year, and therefore that's how the earnings are enhanced. If we turn our attention to the first quarter of 2020, it really continued to be very strong. Quarterly deposits were up at $187 million. That's a 5% increase over the same quarter last year. If we look at total loans at $145 million, total loans were up 7% over the same quarter last year. Revenue was up at $2.8 million in the first quarter of 2020. That was a 5% increase over the same quarter last year. An excellent number. Very pleased with that. Expenses similarly rose in the first quarter of 2020 at $1.5 million, and though it was an increase, the rate of increase was slowing in comparison with the previous year. At a $68,000 rise year over year, that was a 5% increase in total expenses as compared with a higher rate for revenue increase. And finally, if we look at net earnings for the first quarter of 2020, we can see that there's a slight reduction, first quarter of 20 versus first quarter 19. We're in $613,000 in 2020 as compared with $624,000 in 2019, or a reduction of 1.7%. The reason for that reduction is twofold. Number one, first quarter 2019 was a particularly strong quarter. We had additional extraordinary income in that year that didn't reoccur in this quarter. But equally importantly, in the most recent quarter of 2020, management made an additional provision to loan loss reserve because of the outbreak of the coronavirus and rapid increase in unemployment. We felt it was the conservative approach to continue to put additional reserves into loan loss reserve if we should have a downturn in the economy. The bank was again recognized by the American Bankers Association by being included in their top 200 community banks in the United States. Very pleased about this inclusion. I believe this is the 9th year we've been on this list, and we ranked number 66 out of the top 200. We're very pleased to be included in this group. The bank also received the Chino Champions Reader's Choice Award in 2019, where readers vote for their favorite community organizations, and Chino Commercial Bank won under the heading of Community Bank. The bank was again recognized by the Findlay Reports on Financial Institutions in receiving in their highest recognition of super premier performance for the bank's financial performance. We're very pleased about receiving this honor again. And finally, the bank received Bauer Financial's highest rating of 5-star again. The bank has received that for a number of years, and we're very pleased to receive this high recognition. So in conclusion, 2019 was really an excellent year for the bank. We posted new record levels for total assets, total deposits, total loans, total revenue, total earnings per share on an adjusted basis. We're very pleased and proud, and as we saw, we had excellent performance in the first quarter. Really, we're having a tremendous year. So turning our attention to current conditions, I don't know anyone who could have anticipated what we're going through now. We're on day 47 of a statewide and nationwide shutdown. The phrase is shelter in place, but essentially folks are being told to stay home. Non-essential businesses are required to be closed. Face masks are required to be worn in San Bernardino County, and social distancing is required. That is not coming any closer than 6 feet. Many people are contending that this is a massive violation of their civil rights and are beginning to protest. Protests regarding the closure of parks, beaches, national forests, and other recreational places are becoming more and more common, not only in California but in other states. Yet through all of this, our employees have handled this with poise and dignity. They have come to work on time and ready to do their work. Everyone wears a face mask, and in fact, face masks are becoming almost fashionable these days. You can get them to match your outfit or a particular day of the week. Customers have begun to be comfortable wearing them in the bank. For the past 40 years of my life, you would never allow a customer into the bank with a face mask, but today they're required. We've also installed plexiglass windows across the teller line in order to avoid the unintentional sneeze or cough from infecting anyone. So when the coronavirus hit and the state was faced with mandatory shelter in place, or some people call it lockdown, and non-essential businesses were required to close, it became very apparent that capital was going to be needed to small businesses, and it needed to be deployed very, very rapidly. So in quick response to that, the bank granted automatic loan deferments across the board to all of its loans in the portfolio. A borrower did not have to apply, didn't have to qualify. We gave it automatically for the months of April, May, and June. And when you think about it, many of these loans are very, very large loans. They're advanced against commercial real estate, and in many cases, the tenants in that commercial real estate were closed and not able to make their rent payments. So by granting these automatic deferments, it allowed our borrowers to have sufficient cash flow to continue to maintain their operations without running into a deficit. This has been a tremendously helpful and valuable step for us, and we are glad to be of a resource to our borrowers. In addition to that, as soon as it became available, the bank participated with the SBA in granting the payroll protection loans, or PPP loans. This initially was $360 billion, then there was another $306 billion added to that, and they're specifically designed for small businesses, and particularly attractive because they have the potential for debt forgiveness. So in very quick period of time, or just 3 weeks, we accepted over 300 applications for PPP loans totaling $48 million. And I'm happy to announce that we were successful in getting all 300 of those loans through the SBA system. In many cases, they were existing customers. In many cases, they were not. About half of these loans were customers of another bank which either did not offer these, or their program was shut down, or they were unwilling to accept an application. It's been a tremendously helpful thing for these customers to be able to do it, and we think it's going to result in increased business activity going forward. To put it in context, the bank typically does about 100 loans per year. That's per year, 12 whole months. When we think about doing 300 loans in what will ultimately be about 6 weeks, that's about 3 years worth of activity in 6 weeks. It is a tremendous effort, extraordinarily difficult. So when we think about how does a bank like ours put through 3 years worth of lending activity in 6 weeks, we have to have everyone pulling at the oars here. And we had up to 12 people who were at home because they were in a high-risk category, or maybe they were sick at the time. But not to be slowed down, everyone reacted and moved quickly, set up home offices. Here we see Alicia Breimer working out of an office that's been put together in her bedroom. Dave is working in a bedroom workspace there, doing programming and helping the processing of the PPP loans. Melinda, the bank's chief financial officer, working at her home office, able to access the bank's network and to continue to be productive and work through this process. We see Julie Phillip here, who has been working tirelessly on these SBA PPP loans. She is focusing her efforts on coordinating with the SBA. Scott Austin over on the right-hand side. Scott has done a tremendous job for us. He is really working hard on this program. And John Shoemate down at the bottom, John lives in Crestline, and he has been working at home. I think he may have been working too hard at home. That would not be a good hat to wear during hunting season, but we have got a great staff. They are all working very, very hard, and we owe them a big round of applause and a big thank you. Now we'll move to the question and answer session of our meeting this evening.
We have a few questions that were set up, and then Carol will give me any more that come in during that time. Let me jump into the questions first. The first one is, will granting the 3-month loan deferments negatively affect the bank's earnings? And the quick answer on that is no. By granting a loan payment deferment, we're simply changing the scheduling of those payments. So instead of being due April 1st, it was moved to July 1st, which then allowed that borrower to go through the months of April, May, and June without having made payments. Interest does continue to accrue on the loan, but the borrower doesn't have to make those cash payments at that time. And this was strictly voluntary. We had a few borrowers that said, no, I'm within a few months of finishing up the payments on a car or something, and I want to finish these up, and it's fine. You can always make more payments, not a problem. But we received numerous calls with folks expressing their appreciation for how this has helped during a very difficult time. Second question, will the bank lose money if the PPP loans are forgiven? And the answer to that is no. These actually are bank loans. This is bank money that's being loaned. It's a promissory note that's being signed by the borrower. It is in every respect a loan, but it comes with an SBA guarantee. And these SBA guarantees are not uncommon. The 7A program, generally speaking, has a 75% guarantee. These particular loans have a 100% guarantee. So if a borrower were to not repay these loans on time and under the terms and conditions, the bank would apply to SBA for coverage under the SBA guarantee. So we don't stand a principal loss if this loan becomes uncollectible. Okay, third question. I've heard that the PPP loans are at 1%. Will the bank lose money on these loans? The quick answer is no. The bank won't lose money on these loans, but the bank won't make very much money on these loans either. Hard to get rich on 1%. Now, in addition to the interest that is earned on these loans, the bank earns a fee. It's 5% for the smaller loans, 3% for the medium loans, and then 1% for the big loans. And that is added to the overall earnings on the loan. So if you add the 1% plus the fee, it turns out to be about a 2 or 2.5% yield on these loans. So it's not quite as bad as it sounds in the beginning. Fourth question, having made $48 million in new PPP loans, does the bank have any more money to lend? And the quick answer to that is yes, we do still have more money to lend. So we stand behind our customers. We have approximately $19 million in undisbursed commitments on lines of credit, and we have sufficient liquidity to meet those demands or to meet demands for new financing that may come up over the near term. And then the last question I've got here, what happens if a PPP loan is not forgiven by the SBA and not repaid by the borrower? Will the bank lose money? And the answer again is no, these are 100% guaranteed loans. So we will collect on that SBA guarantee and if that were to happen. With that, if there are no further questions or comments or concerns, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm Richard Malooly, shareholder of the company, and I second the motion.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed by saying nay. Very good. Well, the annual meeting of the shareholders of Chino Commercial Bancorp is now adjourned. Thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting. Thank you all for your continued support of the company and encouragement. These are interesting times we're going through. I think this is one of those unique times in history where the value of a small business-focused community bank becomes very important. I think we've gotten a glimpse of how very large banks have a hard time being agile and making quick decisions and quick moves, and that's one area where we are fortunate that we can do, and we can listen to our customers' unique circumstances. So with that, we are encouraged. Everyone here is working hard. They're tired, and by the way, I stand corrected. I said in the video that we had accepted applications for about 300. I was told just this afternoon that that number is 417. So apparently we've gotten a bunch more just in the past couple of days. Well, with that, again, my name is Dan Bowman. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it, and we will talk with you later.